Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Hypeimmune Reviews. I'm School Writer, and today we're going to talk about The Wild Robot. Alright, this is one of those more hairy movies to tackle simply because this is what I think are the true tests of a reviewer. Family movies with a cookie cutter beat by beat recipe plot. By itself, following a recipe for a plot isn't bad, in fact it's normal. But for people like me who watch dozens of the same recipes with small variations over and over and over, it's really easy to just press the "it's boring, it sucks" button, or go the opposite route and shower the movie with praise just because it's trending in order to get these sweet clicks. In fact, I wasn't planning on reviewing this movie at all. But I felt like tackling a self-imposed challenge, trying to push my bias away and at least review what's worthy about this movie, try to check what else besides the cookie cutter formula exists. So how did I fare? Feel free to comment below. So what is it about? Directed by Chris Sanders, director from Lilo and Stitch, yeah, that one, the animated one, and made by DreamWorks Animation, The Wild Robot is an animated science fiction movie adaptation of a book series of the same name. In a distant future, the robot Rosum Unit 7134, voiced by Lupita Nyong'o, wakes up in a rather weird situation. Instead of being in a new home to serve her owners, she finds herself in a lost island in the middle of the ocean, without any human to serve. And she really needs an owner to serve with any sorts of tasks. After weeks trying to bond with the local fauna, due to some rather morbid accidents, she ends up with the task of raising a gosling runt whom she names Brightbill and is voiced by Kit Connor. She feeds him, teaches him to swim and fly so he can migrate with the other geese, and the sudden thrusting to adoptive motherhood will be hard, but at least she won't be alone, for the fox Fink, voiced by Pedro Pascal, will help her, even if he tried to eat Brightbill numerous times. It seems that the artists at DreamWorks have landed in a middle ground between the aesthetic extremes of Puss in Boots in The Last Wish. Instead of a detailed yet cartoony animation style interceded with blurry style whenever action starts, here the prevalence is a style that is balanced between realistic, cartoony with blurry details and bright colors akin to a painting. They also took note from the bad guys' designs and let characters be quite expressive with only specific dashes of cartoonish, mostly the eyes. This all leads to a movie that is quite interesting to look at. Said interesting can turn to a downright gorgeous in specific scenes where the camera knows how to back off and just enjoy the moment. Especially since the color palette is used well. You have a prevalence of green and brown due to the forest, so characters are either more vibrant like Fink or more muted like Rosum, creating a good contrast to make them jump out onto the scene towards the viewer's attention. Speaking of designs, Rosum has a simplistic, adorable design focused on the curves and ball-like appendages, big eyes to compensate for a lack of mouth, so the writers can hide as many tricks as they can within their confines. Nothing bad, but nothing extra really. It's simple as good. Directing wise, I'd say that it's quite solid and knows its craft, but nothing to write home about. It's 1 or 2 points above the usual family movie, knowing when to focus on a brighter spot or a character, either keeping the shot centered on one character or in the middle of two and more characters talking, shifting points of view according to the conversations at hand, as in if character A is expressing his point of view, the camera will be on his point of view. If topic is about X, X will be the one in focus. And this style is becoming a rarity nowadays. The directing also knows how to take a pan shot and so on, and not to cut a scene every 3 seconds. but it doesn't do much more than that, even if you give it a chance. There are some moments to take a breather, but sadly not enough to properly give justice and let the style flourish. Overall, I don't have any complaints about the visuals. In fact, it's quite good. As with the visuals, you're going to see a lot of solid work here. The animation's good and the character animations and body language are expressive yet fit into their personalities, mixing well with the already expressive designs, giving life to beings that tether the line between following their instincts and being something more. Rosum has more paused, automatic movements, things more fluid. Brightbill, since he was raised by both, tethers in the middle. In one moment, viewers will see a possum lady carrying her kids as if she was a human with a toddler, and in the next moment, her face will be twisted with goofy expressions before reverting to a more animalistic snore and so on. The movie isn't also afraid of making things extra comedic, with Rosen being smashed like a cartoon ragdoll. Pacing is overall fluid and good, at least until the middle, with action and music stopping to just let characters talk in their minds, helped by expressive movements, which seem following a logical pattern with predictable but solid time skips. Suck it, Coppola. On the other hand, whenever there is an action scene, not necessarily combat action, things fall down a notch or two. The directing here seems awfully fond of the wobbly camera, which is the less intense cousin of the shake camera. It's still bothersome to find nowadays, which is a shame. If not for the wobbling, some of the more action-oriented scenes would be quite good, like overhead shots or continuous shots. So, the wild robot follows the cookie-cutter recipe of the family movie. If you have seen at least 3 of them or anything made by Disney, you know every single step of the way. X happens, characters Y and Z get together, there's a clash in the middle that separates the characters, and they resolve the difference to overcome difficulties, and so on, so on, so on. The Wild Robots is no exception, following all these steps with some predictability. So how did it stand out so much then? Well, for starters, not only the movie is based on a book, I haven't read it, at best I checked the differences between the movie and the book, but the movie writers added some unique flavor to the formula through a lot of sarcasm, acid, and some dashes of black comedy. Kind of like a lemon tart. The first part of the movie focuses on Rosum, who shortens his name to Ross, dealing with the animals of the island, and wow, these animals are suicidally assholes. As in, they try to be dicks to Ross even if it means getting themselves into lethal danger, and oh, this movie doesn't shy away from showing that yes, it's nature, and yes, animals kill each other. Till it doesn't, but I'm getting ahead of myself. While I think that they went just 1 or 2 steps a bit too far, I also think that this actually works in this flick's favor, because very much like Shrek gained notoriety by spoofing the Disney formula, the Wild Robots poke holes on the good animals being good trend by showing that nature is necessarily cruel. After all, these are animals, they are only trying to survive and death is a daily part of their lives. It also offers some morbid jokes that I enjoy a lot. Sadly, the dichotomy between an unfeeling robot that protects life more because it's a task and animals who are used to death isn't explored much besides some brief points and a joke or two. The middle, with Ross raising Brightbill, is the same fare of most movies following the formula step by step. The only difference is that themes regathered here are about unconventional families, where a robot's trying to raise a runt gosling with the help of a fox. The places that you may belong may not be what you think, going against natural order and overcoming disabilities. These themes are quite interesting and there isn't enough of them around or done well, but here they are mellowed out by the aforementioned formula. Could have been done better, could have been done worse. Up to the climax, the story works well even with the treated path, keeping a good pace and limiting the characters on screen so you can see how their interactions evolve, snippets of their personalities being revealed instead of told in an info dump. The big problem comes after said climax, because this movie doesn't have only one climax, it has three, arguably four. For those who don't know, the climax needs to be the big bang of a work or episode in a series. Skilled writers can pull off two at best, because there is only so much attention and emotional investment of the audience before things get tiresome. One way it could have pulled things off would be turn the climax from something bombastic to something more quiet and contemplative before ramping things up. Instead, it goes up and down like a roller coaster, and to achieve that, well, while I haven't read the book that originated the movie, it gets evident that many moments were ramped up in drama and action for the sake of the cinematic experience, which, while on par with the course, goes against the tone placed by the earlier part of the movie. In fact, I'd say that the weakest points of this movie do come from the need to keep in line with the cookie recipe, not because of the recipe itself, but rather because it sabotages its own themes because of its making things downright cheesy. There are some poignant moments that could be beautiful, but are shut down to make a small joke as if this was a Marvel movie. The hostile relationship between the animals and Ross are kept longer than necessary for the sake of drama, far longer than in the book, resulting in another climax that switches what could have been a natural progression into something "we need to get along" sugary moral lesson worthy of a Disney flick. The geese are hostile to Bright Bill for the sake of a bullying drama, all for another climax with another over-the-top ridiculous action piece, and for a movie that was quite okay with showing that death is part of life, and on-screen death, things ramp up ridiculously high without any sort of casualty, except one, suddenly asking for a suspension of disbelief that it wasn't required so far. Characterization falls on par of the course with the dysfunctional family turns functional. Ross is a mom who is out of touch with his dog-eats-all-dog reality of the wilds, but learns and adapts, getting emotions in her path. Thinks the self-serving jerk that learns to have a heart of gold and shows some hidden depths, and the humanity that Ross initially lacks, and Bright Bill is the awkward teenager with conflicts. Nothing special nor bad about it either. But honestly, even with all this, I don't think that this was a bad flick. The characters do have a good relationship, whenever they aren't obeying the cookie recipe programming. And if I wasn't so jaded from the genre, I'd be touched by many of the moments. They exchange experiences, learn from one another, and carefully tread the line between being complete jerks or complete diabetes bomb. They may trip here and there, but at least they try. Some realistic actions do have surprisingly realistic consequences, and tougher lessons are shown, and tougher lessons are really rare nowadays. There is a good pacing and focus in the first half of the movie, and one thing that I really enjoyed as a writer was that the movie showed just enough of the world to make the viewers realize that this is a post-apocalypse Saccarian dystopia, but didn't try to over-explain the scenario. It's a trap surprisingly easy to fall into, and the writers avoided it knowing that it would sacrifice precious screen time, instead opting for a show-don't-tell that will definitely keep viewers curious and anxious for a possible sequel. Of course this movie will have a sequel. So, as a guy that is absolutely jaded from family movies, I'd say that if this is your kind of genre, or if you are seeking something a bit different but not too different, stick around. It's definitely a tad overhyped, it doesn't break any molds, and in fact it falls prey to them, but it's the odd duck out that offers something different from the norm without going completely the opposite way. And by the end of the day, even I, who isn't a fan of the genre, know that we all need some emotional popcorn from time to time. Music-wise, I say that the directing was quite good. The orchestrated pieces themselves aren't something I'd listen on a day-to-day, but they are quite good and fit the moments they are used in. The directing also knows when to just stop the music and let the characters talk, when to silence the characters and to let the soundtrack enhance the emotions in a scene, and when to let things die out. One odd thing is that amidst all this orchestrated soundtrack, you have a feels-good pop song with lyrics in the middle during the training montage. It isn't unheard of, but it's still odd. And okay, my opinion is that the movie actors and voice actors should be kept in their separated spaces. Voice actors already have a ton of problems with payment and recognition, and it's easy for them to be swooped away whenever a big movie only hires celebrities for the sake of star power. But I have to admit that if everyone here aced their roles, and I'd be a negligent jerk to not point that out. This is basically a movie where every single voice is from a known celebrity actor, and miraculously nearly everyone was really good. Lupita Nyong'o was a good unfeeling machine that had trouble learning about new environment and develop feelings without breaking her mechanical mannerism.
I'm a robot. I do roboty things. I seek tasks and ensure all essential needs have been met or exceeded.
Pedro Pascal suppressed his own mannerisms without losing expressiveness.
Allow me to introduce myself. Think, predator and local goose expert.
And the casting crew even brought Mark Hamill and Ving Rhames to the fray. So, do I recommend this movie? Yes, but for fans of the genre. It's a bit overhyped, it's not as innovative as many people say it is, but it does have interesting deviations and it's overall a good movie. See you next time! Alright, let's talk about spoilers. So, the middle of the movie is about Ross teaching Brightbill to fly, and we have a training montage, followed by a nice slow scene. Good! Brightbill flying away is treated like a climax, with climactic bombastic music, sad moments, and so on and so on and so on. Except that right afterwards we have an action scene with the geese inside an underground farm, and another action scene where the robot saves the animals, and then another action scenes where another set of robots invade the island, and another action scene inside the previous action scene where the forest is catching fire. It's not a climax. It's a series of smaller climaxes. And the weird part is, if what I read about the book is true, those were all smaller scenes that, while important, they weren't bombastic climaxes. They mostly served to show how things progressed and build up for the true climax, which is Ross fighting off the robots that came to seize her. Okay, yeah. So, about basically in the end, the retrieval units that come to retrieve Ross, and she demands to stay with her adopted son Brightbill. Yeah. Because the movie needs a villain, we have the main retrieval unit being an evil AI that needs to find the robot and get it at all costs. And for that they launch gigantic robots full of guns. At that point I said, oh, the animals are all dead. But the robots are easily destroyed by the animals in cartoonish fashion, whereas the book, the island inhabitants needed to use everything they learn, both from Ross and the outside world. For example, the geese learn how guns work by watching one of them being gunned down by a farmer, to make traps, and this victory comes with a cost of lives, as it should, because they are robots with gigantic guns. And this is fitting, since the movie shows that death's part of nature, except that here they switch to everybody's happy and nobody dies. All the animals survive, nobody dies except the robots. And this sudden switch between lessons nearly gave me a whiplash. This is me nitpicking, but by making all the geese gigantic bully assholes, the writers forgot that the character dynamics need a certain time and pace for interactions. And we are in the middle of the movie and Brightbill is still hated. Their solution is to make the character of the wild old goose Longneck suddenly show up. He tells Ross how it is, shower Bright Bill with praise, saying that he's very much needed new blood, and explain to him that yeah, his biological mom would have totally killed him for being a runt, and then he suddenly dies. It feels some like an ass-pull for course correction, and completely needless, useless. All you have to do was make the geese not such an assholes. Anyway, this is all for today. Thank you very much for coming and hope we see each other next time.